Uh-oh.
Okay, we'll start with this. More from the World Boxing Council's annual convention and what orders and updates have come down. In the women's light flyweight division, Kim Clavel is to become the mandatory challenger for newly crowned champion Lourdes Juarez, the champion. The former champion Jessica Niri Plata relinquished her title after she became pregnant, but she sadly miscarried and now wants to fight for her old crown. Suleiman said if she was medically cleared, Plata would be the first to fight Juarez, and Clavel would fight the winner. If Plata is not cleared to fight, then Clavel will instead fight Juarez. This changes things because while I like Kim Clavel's chances against Lourdes, I don't know that she can beat Jessica. When they first met, when they first fought, Jessica Niri Plata was lighting her up like a Christmas tree, catching her in between her combinations and doing a lot of damage, landing a lot of meaty punches. And I don't know that Kim Clavel will do any better in a rematch. Not that she pursued one, because she didn't. The fight with Jessica Niri Plata took place in January of last year, close to 2 years ago, and at no point in between did I see any news about Kim pursuing a rematch with Jessica, and I don't know that she wants one now. So while she might be up for a fight with Lourdes, she may not be up for a rematch with Jessica. The race to a Lourdes Juarez fight starts now between Jessica and Kim. And before anything, Jessica has to get cleared. She has to get medically cleared to fight. Then you have to do the fight. And that's where Jessica might encounter a problem. Jessica doesn't have a major promoter behind her. Neither does Lourdes Juarez. Whereas Kim Clavel has a bit more money behind her. Kim Clavel that is still promoted by Group Yvonne Michel north of the border. Money talks. And if Kim Clavel can iron out a deal with Lourdes Juarez while Jessica is trying to get medically cleared, she may beat her to the punch because she has more resources and more money at her disposal. At least more than Jessica. The whole thing is time sensitive because how long would it take for Jessica to get medically cleared versus how long would it take for Kim to iron out a deal with Lourdes? If they're going to try to, they have to move fast. An alternative. If Kim Clavel cannot beat Jessica to the punch and Jessica gets first dibs on Lourdes, what Kim Clavel can then do is move up in weight because Gabby Fundora, the flyweight division's undisputed champion, may be moving up in weight herself in her very next fight. And if she does, she will vacate all the alphabet titles she currently holds, leaving the door open for somebody like Kim to come along and pick one up. She can get a title that way. Reset button is going to get hit in that division very soon. That's the alternative. If Jessica beats Kim to the punch, she gets a Lourdes Juarez fight first, and Kim doesn't want to do a rematch with her, she can always move up in weight, fight for a title upstairs in the flyweight division. And that takes care of all of the light flyweight news. 2 divisions south of light flyweight. At Atomweight, Tina Ruprecht just won a unification fight for the WBC, WBA, and WBO titles and is looking to be undisputed champion. She has made a deal with Japan's IBF champion Sumire Yamanaka for about in February or March. That's really not that far away. It's right around the corner. And I like Tina's chances in that fight. I like her chances to become the inaugural undisputed atomweight champion because before this, I don't think there's ever been one. Whether it takes place in February or March, I think Tina gets the job done, and she can retire on that if she wants to. You know, Tina's been around a long time. She debuted as a professional way back there in 2013. That's roughly 11 years as a professional boxer, a two-division champion, and in this scenario, an undisputed champion. 32 years old. It's really not up there in age, but having been around so long, she can so choose to retire, or she can use her new undisputed status to move up in weight back to the minimum weight division and challenge Sarah Borman. This weekend, Sarah Borman is set to fight for the newly vacated WBO title, vacated as a result of Senicia Estrada's retirement. I anticipate Sarah's gonna win. Sarah's gonna become the WBO champion at minimum weight.
Right.
And if Tina becomes undisputed champion in either February or March, the WBO have a special designation, Super Champion status, that allows a fighter to move up in weight and challenge for the WBO title straight away as the mandatory challenger. It's what you saw in Crawford versus Jeff Horn. It's what you saw in Usyk versus Joshua. And it's what you could see with Tina and Sarah, provided that they both win their upcoming fights. And I think they're going to. What that would set up is an all-German shootout. Both Sarah and Tina are action fighters and volume punchers. A fight between them would be a shootout.
Thinking even further ahead, if all of this were to come to fruition, and Tina Ruprecht were to beat Sarah Borman for Sarah's newly obtained WBO title, that could also set up a rematch between Tina and Yokastia.
Yokasta, who currently reigns as WBC minimum weight champion. Tina beat Yokasta about 5 or 6 years ago in 2018, so it's not like Tina's the one that needs it, but you figure that because Yokasta's on an undisputed run, and in this scenario Tina would have a belt, well, that sets that up.
That would put the both of them on a collision course.
We may be getting ahead of ourselves. First, Sarah has to win the WBO title this weekend. Then next year, Tina has to become undisputed champion. Then after that, they have to fight each other.
And that's where Yokastia might come into the frame. So there are a lot of moving parts and a lot of things that need to happen, but it's all entirely possible.
Things are shaking, rattling, and rolling between Atomweight and minimum weight, and those are two divisions that are set to heat up in the coming year. In men's junior middleweight news, don't mention his name. Tszyu breaks silence as a loss was like bombs going off, makes a personal reveal. Tim Tszyu has spoken for the first time about where it all went wrong in a shock world title loss against Russia's Bakhram Murtazaliev, describing it as like having bombs exploding in my head, while also revealing he will marry longtime partner Alexandria in Sydney next week. Now, 2 months on from being brutally knocked out by undefeated IBF champion Bakhram Murtazaliev, Tszyu has confessed to having never experienced anything like he did that night in Orlando, Florida, when dropped 4 times in 3 rounds before brother Nikita threw the towel.
Oh, so it was Nikita that did that.
However, the fighter just as quickly stresses he will be back challenging for world titles soon, and remains convinced that he has the skills and style necessary to dominate the super welterweight division. In an incredibly open interview with Fox Sports Australia, Tszyu said he still has not rewatched the Murtazaliev loss and likely won't, while also revealing he and Hall of Fame father Kostia, who was ringside on fight night, also haven't discussed the fight at all.
What's to discuss? He got his ass handed to him in 3 rounds. He was never in that fight.
A hard pill to swallow. Tszyu couldn't comment on the commentary from various fight commentators and analysts about how he started the championship bout, saying he couldn't recall the early rounds and had not really spoken at length with anyone about how it ended. Tszyu did admit, however, to feeling a different vibe with his father back ringside for the first time since his debut, but rejected suggestions the old man's presence may have impacted the way he fought early. The 30-year-old also laughed off suggestions that he is set to fight Australian boxing bad boy Michael Zarafa next. Nah, don't mention his name, while opening up on his marriage to fiancée Alexandria Constantine, which takes place within days. A noted car enthusiast, Tszyu also hired 50 vehicles as part of next week's Sydney nuptials, which will include some 110 guests, with best mate from school, Tszyu, taking on the role of best man, while Kostya will not be jetting in from Russia for the event. He's busy as always.
Too busy for his son's wedding?
Tim cackled. The legendary fight great will be back down under early in the new year as part of a speaking tour.
Wait a minute. So you can go to Australia for a speaking tour, but you can't make it to your son's wedding?
While Tszyu's loss may have rocked the Australian sports landscape and been discussed, debated, and replayed several times by commentators, journalists, and fans, the man himself has yet to watch it, just as he hasn't watched his previous title loss to towering American Sebastian Fundora. I've also never watched Dad's fight against Ricky Hattenback, the fighter continued, referencing the bout that finished his father's career. Never watched the Fundora fight back, so I'm not expecting to watch this one back either. And why?
Why?
I don't know, he shrugged. It's not a feeling I want to relive again. I'd rather look towards the future. Tszyu also rejected suggestions his next fight would be an all-Aussie showdown against longtime rifle Michael Zarafa. Nah, don't mention that name, he said. I've always been an international fighter. So while I do want to come back and fight in Australia, that man doesn't deserve to be on this type of stage. Let him dwell.
Well, if he's not fighting Tim, he can always fight Timmy's brother, Nikita. There were talks about doing that fight.
You notice how he stresses that he's an international fighter. He doesn't consider himself or like to be considered a domestic-level Aussie, a domestic-level fighter. He thinks of himself as a world-level fighter. And up until his last two fights, that's what he looked like.
Why not fight Michael Zarafa, though? It's still a big fight in Australia, and it's the ideal rebound fight for Tim Tszyu.
Pride. He's got his pride, and he doesn't want to see himself in a place where he has to resort to fighting the likes of a Michael Zarafa to get back in the winner's bracket. That and spite. He just doesn't want to give Michael the satisfaction. He doesn't feel he's earned a fight with him.
Then who is he gonna fight?
Not thinking about that right now. He's about to get married. Quizzed on the questions surrounding how he started the fight and his thoughts on the start against Murtazaliev, Tszyu shrugged. I can't recall, but from what I can remember, I got caught early in round 2, and that's all I remember. I wish I got to show my boxing skills coming into the fight. I felt unbelievable. I felt superhuman. But the fight itself? The only thing that went wrong was getting hit with one shot, Tszyu shrugged, and I couldn't recover. I remember the back of my head, it was throbbing. I don't know what shot it was from, but my head was throbbing, and I couldn't feel my legs. Every time I was getting hit, it felt in my head like bombs were exploding. It wasn't punches, but bombs. A credit to Bakhram Murtazaliev's power
And his accuracy and his left hook.
I remember reading that going into the Tim Tszyu fight, Bakhram actually had a busted right hand. His right hand was busted, so he got left hand happy. And it's that left hand, that left hook, that did the most damage and won him the fight.
Call it destiny.
The way all these things came to be. Tszyu said, I've never felt that before. Usually you can take shots, it's part of the game. But this was an explosion, after explosion, after explosion. It was weird, you know? You're down and you're thinking, what the hell is going on? You're in shock. But you get up because in your head you're still thinking, you're gonna have to kill me to get me out of here.
For a long time, Bakhram Murtazaliev was in the shadows, fighting on the non-televised portions of PBC shows, and you wonder that the PBC wasn't hiding him.
The PBC?
He was Jermel Charlo's mandatory challenger for some years, and they negotiated several step-aside deals to allow Charlo to unify the junior middleweight division, but as a result of that, nobody saw Bakhram. Nobody knew him.
So that by the time he fights at Tim Tszyu, the audience is largely ignorant to what he can do. Indeed, much to his credit, Tszyu continued to rise after being dropped by the Russian, with the fight only stopped when younger brother Nikita threw the towel. I wasn't going to get counted out, Tszyu said, before then adding with a laugh, even when proposing to me misses. I was only down for a quick knee. Then, up I go. You're gonna have to kill me to get me out of there. Asked if having Dad ringside for the first time in so long made a difference, Tszyu took a long pause before replying. I felt a different vibe. No, I don't think I fought differently, he said, and I didn't hear Dad when I was in the ring, but it did feel different. Maybe just not used to him being there.
Because most of the time he isn't. Maybe Tim won't say it, but I will.
He might be better off with his father not being around, because at this stage and at this age, him being there is a distraction.
As well as the bright lights in America, I never liked Tim Tszyu's obsession with fighting here. I didn't think it was necessary, and nothing good came out of his relationship with the PBC.
The whole point of it was landing the undisputed title fight with Jermell Charlo, and he never got that. He didn't get anything out of that relationship with the PBC because he was already in line to fight for the WBO title before he started working with them. All they could do for him was get him the Jermell Charlo fight, and they didn't.
It was all bad.
Back over to what role his father's presence may have played, his impact on Fight Week, Tim Tszyu said, "I didn't really see him." Tszyu conceded, speaking after attending the weigh-ins for Friday night's No Limit on Fox showcase, which is set to be headlined by the return of popular Australian Jock Barvis, and also including the professional debut of Olympian Callum Peters. "I only saw Dad at the press conference and weigh-in. That was it. Otherwise, I stayed isolated. That's why everything was smooth. The team worked so well. So I don't think he played a part, but it was a different vibe." What did he say afterwards? "I haven't spoken to him," he said simply, "or not about the fight."
So it's very obvious that Tim Tszyu does not have the relationship with his dad that, say, Teofimo has with his, or that Floyd Schofield has with his.
Brian Norman Jr. and Brian Norman Sr.
So many boxing dads involved, enthralled in their sons' boxing careers. That is not the case when it comes to Costia and Timmy.
And maybe that's the way things need to be. Maybe Tim doesn't want to admit it, or maybe he just doesn't realize that he's better off with his dad not being there.
Chalk it up to bad luck.
Because, yeah, he lost to Sebastian, but he didn't lose to Sebastian how he lost to Bakhram. With Bakhram, it was all bad. All bad. And so afterwards, he just spoke as a dad? Honestly, I don't remember. Tszyu conceded. The whole thing was just a blur, but I'd have him there at my next fight. Again, Fight Week was sweet. Tszyu also rejected suggestions he was looking beyond the champ, despite American Erickson Lubin revealing at ringside after the fight that he had been signed to face Tszyu in December. I was switched on, man. Tszyu insisted.
He's not one for making excuses. He never has been.
Honestly, everything in Fight Week was so good. It wasn't my performance. I just got caught early. I wasn't outperformed, and maybe if we fight 10 times, I win 9. But on that night, he landed the first shot, and that's boxing. Like the night I fought Carlos Ocampo. Maybe we were going to have a hard-fought slugfest, but what did I do? I landed that first shot, first minute, and it was lights out. At this level, that's boxing. That's what makes the sport so brutal.
Tim's not thinking about boxing right now. He's about to get married. And we likely won't see this guy until maybe the second or third quarter of next year. That wouldn't surprise me.
Hard to say whether or not he'll ever go back to being the guy that he was before his last 2 fights, though I would like to see him do it, and I would like to see him succeed, because guys like him are good for the sport. If nothing else, he's got courage, he's got heart, and that's more than we can say for a lot of fighters.
He does seem to have a penchant for rushing things, though, for jumping the gun, for grabbing the bull by the horns when he might need to take it easy. If it's up to me, he fights in Australia exclusively all of next year and some of the one after that.
Michael Zarafa, Andre Mikhailiovic, then maybe a world-level guy like a Jesus Ramos.
What about Bakhram?
Things have since gone quiet for Bakhram Murtazaliev. I don't see anybody calling his name. I don't see anybody calling him out or being in any rush to fight him after he did what he did to Tim.
I don't really know what's next for Bakhram.
I can only hope that Turki El Sheikh might find use for him on one of his Riyadh season shows.
We'll see.